I asked Reddit what could Pokemon do to better engage adult players, and now I'm going to share with you the results as well as some fascinating game design insights. Let's get into it. This is my first discussion video, and as you can see, they will not be as polished as some of my other videos. Case in point, I made a video titled Should Pokemon Be Made for Adults, where I've already gone through some decent game development insights. Feel free to check it out to see what I mean about polished. However, after I posted it, I really wanted to hear from you, the people who play Pokemon, and what specifically would capture your interest. Hence, why I took to Reddit. And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised with the positive response I received from the community, and there were some really intriguing results once I had collected it all. So, here I am to share it with you. Of course, I have links in the description so you can check out all the posts, comments, and any videos I mention. I also apologize for any usernames I mispronounce and quotes that I shorten or summarize. To start us off, here is a quote from the original post. I won't read the whole thing, just the first bit. What could Pokemon do to be better for you? I feel like there are countless ways gameplay could be improved, so let me know what experience you crave for Pokemon that would really satisfy you. Note, a game targeting adults doesn't mean it has to be violent, difficult, or mature in content. It can have deeper levels of engagement without excluding the fun for children. I read through every single comment, of which there were over 100, took note of what kinds of categories of topics they were bringing up, and compiled it all into this handy pie chart. Keep in mind, this does not take into account the upvotes. This is just the ratios of content I found in people's comments. If people mentioned more than one thing in their comment, I added a point to each relevant category. The first thing you will notice is that almost a quarter of the suggestions talked about difficulty or challenge. A lot of people mentioned the words hard mode, and a few less than that mentioned having trainers and gym challenges scale to the player's level or how many badges they had collected thus far. I'll talk about this in more depth soon. Let's run through the rest. Coming almost equally in second and third place was talking about story, followed by exploration. Combined, they make up another quarter. A lot of people mentioned more freedom and quality in those two areas. Again, almost tied in fourth and fifth place was the ability to skip the tutorial or cutscenes, and mentioning something related to the graphics and animations. Going further down, we have improved NPC interactions. I might bring up a post or two that mention this later on. Basically, having the world feel more alive with dialogue that has more dimensions to them beyond TMs sure are useful, and maybe having facial expressions other than hollow smiles would be nice. Next up is better Pokemon interactions and bonding. This topic is particularly close to my heart. Although there were more mentions of better interactions than people who made a specific point about bonding, I believe they are all hitting upon the same point. People want to feel an attachment and affection for the buddies they are going on an adventure with. User Sylvian said that a good thing was being able to adventure alongside your Pokemon like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and talk to them and know how they were feeling. The only team I remember from all my years playing Pokemon is the one I walked next to. I think this says quite a lot about how simple mechanics can really make a world of difference to bonding with Pokemon. Small Hot Pocket said, adding a mechanic where you can befriend wild Pokemon without battling them has always been something I've wanted. Maybe do something like Rune Factory did, and have to give them something they like, and then try to pet them. I really love this idea. It's been something on my mind for a long time. In a future video, I'll be going into a lot of different mechanics that can be useful for bonding with characters in a game, not just Pokemon. I'm super looking forward to it, so I hope you'll join me for that discussion. Next few topics, better AI in combat, more post-game content, character customization, and competitive battles. These, with only a handful of comments each, all expressed a desire for their general improvement. Those improvements were either witnessed in other similar games or seen in previous Pokemon generations but have since been removed. Next, we have the beautiful comment, "It's fine the way it is." And you know what? That is totally fair. Pokemon is the biggest franchise on the planet because of the way it is now. Clearly, there must be a lot of things going right here. Sure, there is a lot to debate about that. I'm currently going through a lot of people's desires for Pokemon. But the money they spend to flood all the schoolyards in the world with merchandise and a good enough gameplay formula means that they don't need to change much at all to satisfy people. Going down the rest of this list, although they have only made a few mentions each, these all really appeal to me. And apparently to you as well, because some of them came with a lot of upvotes. This first one about scaling down cities and no empty buildings was noted in the comment that received the largest number of upvotes. Ratty Returns once again said, "Some actual exploration or dungeon crawling would be nice, and either flesh out the cities or reduce the buildings and empty space. The amount of inaccessible background features was way too high in both Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield." Another Reddit user went on to clarify this point about exploration to bring back the kinds of dungeons you can find in earlier generations that didn't exist at all in Sword and Shield. Places like Bellsprout Tower or Team Skull's Po Town hideout. Who here remembers Mount Silver? Continuing on, we had a few people suggest a class-based system for the players to engage in based on the content they want to focus on. Bringing back Small Hot Pocket. Adding classes or careers would be cool too, like Breeder, Ranger, Trainer, Professor, Coordinator, maybe even training to be gym leaders or Elite Four members. Personally, I would be really interested in seeing something like this too. Completely optional, of course, but it might yield some entertaining extra content. What's particularly fantastic are the other suggestions they made, like bring back customizing characters and add more options as you go, and stop gender-blocking clothes/hairstyles. This point is personal to me. I have very long hair. It goes down between my shoulder blades. Please don't force me to have a haircut. Next, Pokedex-related mechanics. Bringing back Sylveon, who not only started their comment mentioning it, but made a note on a lot of other topics as well. I loved the Dex Nav so much. I've been playing Pokemon since I was 8, so 13 years. I wish the games were more innately difficult, with trainers strategizing a bit to actually having 6 Pokemon at some points. With the Dex Nav, seeing Pokemon tails pop out of the grass was so fun, sneaking up on them, finding Pokemon with egg moves, etc. It made me actually excited to discover and catch Pokemon. I hated the blatant hand-holding of Sun and Moon and the Rotom Dex. I think it would be cool if the NPCs actually had useful information to give you to reward you for talking to them, telling you hints about where you could find rare Pokemon or items, etc. I still talk to everyone, but I've noticed that it doesn't do much in Sun and Moon, whereas I used to get more items and trades in the past from talking to people. I also like strength puzzles, teleporters, ice puzzles, moving arrows, and so on. Of course, a robust endgame with Battle Tower and stuff would be really great. The last time I was able to play that was Heart Gold, but at the time I didn't know anything about competitive Pokemon, so I was terrible. I bred a lot of good Pokemon in X and Y, but there wasn't a battle frontier. Yep, a lot of points across the pie chart there. The second last note on the chart was troll answers, because why wouldn't there be? And then the last, larger part were notes that some people made that no one else did, such as the next region being based on Australia. As an Aussie, I can appreciate that. Now, let's swing back around to difficulty. There is a very good reason I put any mention of challenge in the game under the same suggestion as difficulty settings. This might sound logical, but there is actually an important distinction between the two I have to make. Players who ask for a greater challenge and the players who ask for a higher difficulty setting may or may not be asking for the same thing, but there is a good chance that they are. However, if you told a game designer to organize a game for challenge or for difficulty, you would end up with two wildly different results. Difficulty is about putting the player under pressure with limitations and making them work to overcome a problem. Facing the same problem in the future may require the same amount of difficult work. Challenge is asking a player to solve a problem, and by doing so, they have grown in understanding of the game's mechanics. Should they encounter the same problem again, they know how to overcome it quickly. If difficulty is about working harder, then challenge is about working smarter. I believe what most players are after in Pokemon is for a greater challenge. People want to work towards mastering the combat system. However, Pokemon is so bluntly easy that there is no challenge at all. You don't need to think to play these games. Denizev said, "The combat is actually fine as it is. It's an easy-to-learn, hard-to-master system. The problem is that the games don't use that system in creative ways, or it doesn't have much difficulty." Then they go on to mention a Nuzlocke mode, which I super appreciate. I think a Nuzlocke mode, as just an option with customizable settings, would do a lot for the game's entertainment value. However, there is a problem of Pokemon quote-unquote dying that Game Freak is probably never going to endorse. Anybody has the thoughts, "A lot of features in Sword and Shield were great to fit into a hard game, just the game itself doesn't deliver on that front. Pokemon has a great competitive scene which is popular among adults, but the games don't really prepare any newcomer for it. Giving the tools to quickly build a competitive team is great, giving the players the knowledge on how to do it is even better." The StarChild93 has some really good suggestions for how to separate easy and hard modes. Easy mode is normal. Your rival picks the Pokemon you're strong against, team shares XP, trainers don't use items as much, rarely have a full team. Hard mode, rival locks Pokemon you're weak against. no shared XPs, unless you have XP share held, trainers use items more often, trainers have full teams. Have a trainer level so other trainers can scale to your level and will be competitive even if you stay in Area 1 and grind. I've thought of other things to change for both models, but this base idea I like. And I like that too, these are good suggestions. Now, let's look back at story and exploration, because amongst those two, you will find world building, and there are some really great comments relating to all of these elements. Veniasil said, more world building, or rather, use the world building you already have. There's 880 dex entries telling interesting folklore and stories, but none of them ever maps into an NPC side quest or anything interesting to do. This is an incredibly important point. Pokemon is vastly missing out on the biggest opportunity they have had since day one. Every single dex entry that even slightly catches your interest could have had a quest connected to it, not only confirming what you have learned about it, but cementing that entry in your mind with an engaging experience. Veniasil goes on to make other points of note too. This has been a forever problem, but for God's sake, improve the animations. The models are fine already, or even overdone at points. It's the animations that suck. Flamethrower still comes out from Ninetales' butt, and Double Kick is just the sprite/model hopping twice. In contrast, when a Tigrex charges at you in Monster Hunter Stories 2, it actually charges at you. I'll be going into the game development techniques on how to fix these animations in a future episode, so if anyone is interested in learning about how some rather simple techniques could improve these elements, hit that subscribe button. Oh, and I haven't even gotten into the mimetically copy-paste face animations for human characters in Pokemon games. I don't even want to go there. Give us back decent multiplayer. The player search system was simple, awesome, and literally top tier. There never ever needed to be a change from there. Also, 60 seconds timeouts in multiplayer battles? Come on. Also add a co-op battle multiplayer mode. For example, Monster Hunter Stories 2 has Contra and co-op multiplayer modes. And at least in terms of helping players find and create matches, XY's player search system was better than Monster Hunter Stories 2. Do not fall into the open world meme, they then suggest some videos. Not everything needs to be open world, not everything functions as open world, and Game Freak can't even get a corridor world game like Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon done right, let alone open world. Monster Hunter Stories 2, for example, uses a model of segmented world with large central areas, and it functions decently well for what it needs to do. Pokemon Legends Arceus might have that same model, but yeah, I don't know if I trust Game Freak to do it well. I have a 30-minute video of me just pulling apart the trailers and talking about open world mechanics. You can check that out if you want. Basically, if Pokemon wants to re-engage me, the first thing they need to do is to make it more like Monster Hunter, or at least the parts where you are not carving your Houndoom quest target for parts. Yeah, I don't think I would enjoy chopping up Pokemon for parts either, but yes, Monster Hunter Stories 2 has done a lot of amazing things that a lot of game developers can learn from. Era TNT CZ, I think the games would be better for adults if the villain team actually felt like it was actually doing some damage or endangering someone or something. Like, they usually have this huge plan, but before anything happens, an 11-year-old kid beats them. I think Gen 5 has the best evil team because they try to force everyone to release their Pokemon, and some people actually do, while manipulating a boy that understands Pokemon. And in the sequel, you are helping your rival find his sister's stolen Pokemon, and that is a pretty good reason to beat the evil team, other than they will steal everyone's Pokemon or destroy the world. I mean, Team Plasma is trying to steal everyone's Pokemon, but they are trying to manipulate the people to release them instead of using brute force. Of course, some people might disagree and say that the destruction of the world is a better reason to beat the team, but I would feel more motivated to beat the evil team if they hurt my friends or something like that. To which I replied to their post, "You are actually hitting upon a really great point in story writing. The problem with the land, world, or universe at risk of destruction is that the human brain can't actually quantify elements that big. However, the brain is really good at being attached to things on a personal level. Bad guys can absolutely be a threat to the world. They just have to hit something really personal along the way, or the audience doesn't really feel anything. Well, I'm the hero of the story. I'm sure I'll save the day." What? They stole my Wooloo?
They're dead.
Anonymous Reddit user said, "For me, I'd like them to go back to being smaller scale. I will always prefer playing on a Game Boy system or 3DS to playing on Switch. I don't need realistic human-sized trainer proportions or a more detailed overworld like Sword and Shield had. I always liked filling in the gaps in the world on my own. Absolutely, there is an incredible power in letting the human brain do all the heavy lifting in making your world look more beautiful. Books do it all the time, and they don't have a graphics card attached. Using simplified and representative visuals, the world can become more alive in the player's mind than anything that can be displayed on the screen. I'll also be talking about this in my graphics and animation episode. That, and more dungeons, caves like there used to be, and continuing with the quality of life updates. I know they use the reasoning that some things are specific to each region, but in my opinion, there's no reason for anything like Poker Radar or Miggers to be removed in later generations. I'd also like more language options. The 9 they have now are great, and do cover most of the market they have, but I'd love for Dutch, Portuguese, Russian to be options too. Again, absolutely, they have the money to include a lot more language options and the internet to be able to upload the update to everyone. No excuse for them to not be more inclusive. Overload 2-477. I'd love the world to feel more alive. NPCs who say more than a single line of dialogue, even if they don't say much new. Books you can actually read. None of this, it's a shelf full of books on Pokemon mythology. I want to read the mythology/research/journal. Side quests which unlock special Pokedex entries or unique dialogue or even special forms of Pokemon or a TM. And more rooms to explore. No more doors that don't really exist, less empty houses with nothing in them, more hidden paths and routes that even just give something like an elixir or an evolution stone, or maybe part of the aforementioned side quests. More areas locked behind progression, not for story, but for exploration. 8 gems aren't great, but if they come back for this, I'm fine with it. Really great ideas here, thank you Overload. I also want to mention that there were 1 or 2 comments about Sun and Moon's story actually being pretty good, and I tend to agree. Lily's family was filled with interesting characters with interesting relationships, and a story that had these characters learn and grow from their experiences. However, why did any of that involve the player character? It was really just Lily dragging you into it for no reason. You had no personal connection or investment to their story. How amazing would it have been if you instead actually played as Lily herself, and your starting Pokemon was Cosmog, a legendary Pokemon? That would have been so beyond anything that anyone would have expected for these games. What a shame it didn't happen. Anyway, now that I've given my thoughts as a game developer on these ideas, let's hear from other game devs. After the great response I got on the Pokemon subreddit, I then took my findings and posted them and the question to the game design subreddit. They come up with some interesting stuff too. This first one had the most upvotes. Bug on the Wall. This is absolutely a hot take here, but I would love a Pokemon game that only had 100 to 200 or so Pokemon in it, and played more like an immersive sim or Metroidvania. The games seriously lack exploration and discovery, and seem to rely on, wow, new Pokemon to try to satisfy that pillar of design. I'd also love more alternate appearances for Pokemon, rather than alternate forms that have new typings or moves. I'd love it if there were 12 different appearances for Caterpie, and some were rarer than others. Some only appeared in certain areas, other appearances you had to breed for, etc. I would actually be very curious if, instead for Sword and Shield of cutting the Pokedex in half, they instead had only 200 Pokemon available for that game, with the vast majority of them being completely new. You could trade them to the home system, but most Pokemon couldn't be allowed in. I wonder what the reaction would have been to that. Would it have been just as controversial as before, or maybe less because it was a very different approach instead of the same approach we have always seen, but with limitations? And yes, that smaller dex would have allowed for alternate appearances to be worked on. I too would enjoy seeing this in Pokemon games. In nature, you have lots of birds of the same species but with slightly different looks. I think that would add well towards the feeling of being a researcher type in gameplay. Reddit user CanvaVerbalist had a giant post proposing an entire and thought-out battle mechanic, which was a particularly fun read for me, who is a mechanics designer. I won't read the post in this video, but I will absolutely be reading it in a future discussion video when I get around to talking about battle mechanics. However, as I have read out before, and I will do so again now, people have suggested that the battle mechanics are indeed fine as they are. It's the mechanics around the battles that could use some improvement. Nivlakart said, "If there's anything to improve in Pokemon, I don't think it's the battles, I think it's the Pokemon. I would love to see features where you have to plan your Pokemon's diet and care, find out their likes and dislikes. Make them disobey you when they don't trust you and you have to earn their trust. Take a page out of Monster Rancher's book or something. Have more layers in team building. Maybe same type Pokemon enjoy similar raising mechanics. You know, some in-world reason why gym leaders in Elite Four insist on using Pokemon of the same type. Mechanics that give Pokemon more life as pets rather than just avatars for RPG mechanics. I think adding mechanics like this gives adults a lot more things to do, yet still keeps it accessible for children. Heck, us love-starved adults would probably appreciate these virtual pet bonding mechanics so much after a long day of work. Pokemon keeps tweaking things in the battle system thinking that's where the problem is. Your battle system is fine. Tweak your Pokemon. Like I said earlier, the bonding mechanics are a topic close to my heart, and this really touches upon why that is. Not the love-starved part, the more life rather than RPG mechanics part. My Puns Suck said, I'd bring out the potential they've already got in serious tournament play and clean up some of the time wasting. To that end, I'd have Pokemon fully heal between fights, along with making all held items indefinitely reusable. Battles in general would be tweaked accordingly, with enemies using appropriate status effects, buffs, and debuffs. This means challenging the player's team rather than their inventory of healing items. Gyms would be designed like puzzles to be solved, with overbearing strategies that must be countered. My design goal would be for the Elite Four to feel like a tournament against well-rounded human players with biases towards making their favorite type shine. They've got a great combat system going on, but it feels like a chore to slog through when all the battles are dead easy, and filled with painfully slow and unnecessary animations. Fix those problems and the combat is fun again. Then there's just the problem of overbearing bad stories. I'd simply remove them, at least remove the concept of a main plot, and instead have side quests and mini-arcs. The goal is to catch them all and be the best, a goal that obliges the player to see the world and explore everywhere. There doesn't need to be some high-concept save the world to make this compelling. That last part about removing the main plot has some serious evidence to back it up. The most successful open-world games have their main plot as an almost optional element to it. A lot of people have put in hundreds of hours into Skyrim but never finished the main story quest. Breath of the Wild doesn't actually want you to defeat Ganon until you are satisfied and want to see the credits roll. Everyone saw everything else in the game because they were curious about it. Pokemon, although doesn't need to be open world, already has the justification of go out and explore as much as you like because Pokédex and Championship. Wanna be the best? You better go find the best. This means that all the best story moments for Pokemon can be found in the characters and side quests that the player discovers along their journey. You shouldn't have to force the player to go from point A to B to C just because that is the order of the main plot. They should go there because they haven't been there and want to know what treasures can be found. Finally, to finish this video out, I want to read from Nerd866, who worded a really great point beautifully. The main concern I see here is that adult is too broad. Without getting bogged down in specific demographics, my point is that there probably isn't something generalizable here. A hardcore adult player and a casual adult player are very different, and I'll bet they could both enjoy Pokemon, but would want very different kinds of changes to the series. The casual player welcomes XP share and doesn't care about features like being able to turn it off. The casual player is completely fine with gym challenges being easy to learn because they don't need to dig into the nitty-gritty to enjoy the game. The hardcore player wants the opposite. The casual player may find the repeated catching versus battling, such as in Pokemon Go or Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu/Eevee, to be chill and enjoyable, not forcing them into long, tedious battles. They argue that Pokemon Go and Let's Go better respect their time and provide a more appealing experience. Case in point is that Jacob McKee left a response in my previously mentioned Adults video saying exactly this. Sword and Shield was their favorite game because it respected their time the most. Continuing with Nerd866, however, the hardcore player may prefer to balance their resources and make decisions about when to battle, how much, when to use their healing items between battles, and how to ration their way through places like large caves. They may value being prepared for a long journey, expect a section of the game to be demanding, and accept when they failed so they can learn and feel more satisfaction from completing a hard section. We can go on. The point is that there is no one adult's demographic that wants the same thing. As soon as you make something an option, the hardcore player will complain that they can turn some hard thing off, thereby undermining it as a mechanic and feeling a dissonance regarding why the mechanic is even there. As soon as it can't be turned off, the casual player will complain that it's too hard. To that end, my solution to this problem would be to have 2 modes of gameplay, and I wouldn't dare call them easy and hard modes. Instead, I would call them, rightfully so, casual mode and challenge mode, with clear labels for what each mode offers the player before starting them on their adventure, perhaps written as such. Casual mode is for the player who is looking for an adventure that respectfully doesn't demand too much of their time. This mode allows you to make friends with Pokemon without fear of any of them being left behind. Below these words would be a list of changes to the game. Experience share is always on. Rival picks friendlier options towards the player. Specific Pokemon locations are slightly expanded. Trainers and gym leaders are set to default levels and use standard battling techniques. More copies of common, useful items found in the world. Stat-manipulating items are available for purchase at all times. Challenge mode is for players who are looking to learn how to build effective teams and strategies. In order to become the best, you will have to find and use your Pokemon to their fullest potential. The list below looks mostly like a reflection to before. Experience share is off. The rival will push you to be your best. Some Pokemon will require cunning to find. Trainers and gym leaders often have full teams, scale in proportion to the player's achievements, and may use advanced and competitive battling techniques. Default treasures hidden in the world. Stat-manipulating items for purchase are reserved for champions. There is nothing to say that a brand new player can't pick the challenge mode. In fact, what I have described in this challenge mode is almost identical to how earlier generations of Pokemon played out. The only real significant difference is how the AI would make choices in battles. Learn those very techniques yourself, and you can more than handle whatever they can throw at you. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you got something out of it, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps a lot. Like I said before, feel free to check out my other videos. There are a lot more on the way. Also, if you want to be a part of future discussions, leave a comment in my design study videos. This discussion came after my Should Pokemon Be Made for Adults video, and I have a few others I have yet to post on Reddit about, such as my reboot introduction video or my world map episode about world building. Thank you to everyone that posted. For all the ones you saw in this video, I asked permission to show them first. Turns out all the posts you make all fall under copyright. Go figure. All of you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.